Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 1994 film Mosquito. And I remember when I was much younger, in the 90s, flipping channels on TV, because yes, that is how you used to find what you wanted to watch, is literally flipping through channels on television. And I came across a portion of this film. So I remember this a little bit from my childhood, and so it was very nice to revisit it as an adult and realize that, hey, this is a fun, so bad it's good film from the 90s. It has that typical terrible 90s acting. Like, I don't know how to characterize it. There's just this typical terrible 90s acting that, like, you just feel it and you're just like, oh, that's terrible acting from the 90s. I feel like each decade has its own terrible acting, and it just feels like it's of that decade. This just reeks of the 90s terrible acting. But like I said, it's a fun film. So I'll be rating it two ways. As a straight up film, sorry, allergies and stuff. As a straight up film, but also as a so bad it's good film. This one's directed by Gary Jones, who also did Spiders, Crocodile 2, Death Swamp, Jolly Roger, Massacre at Cutter's Cove, Boogeyman 3, Axe Giant, The Wrath of Paul Bunyan. That one sounds fun to me. And Escape from Death Block 13, which actually came out in 2021. So Gary Jones still directing. Written by Jones as well as Tom Chaney, who also wrote scripts for Wendigo, Take Two, and The Wind Walker, and Steve Hodge, who didn't have any other credits. Earl the Bank Robber is played by Gunnar Hansen. Obviously, everyone knows Gunnar Hansen as Leatherface from the original The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I love how in this film they have that wonderful nod to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and who Gunnar Hansen was in that film with the chainsaw. But I'll talk a little bit more about that when it comes to it. Apparently, he was cited as saying that he loved this role, that this was actually one of his favorite roles, which I could see this being a really fun film to work on, honestly. I would have loved to work on a film like this. That would be a lot of fun, especially with how awesome the practical effects looked. Well, like bad awesome. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. But anyway, apparently Gunnar Hansen loved it. All right, working titles for this film included Skeeters, Night Swarm, and Blood Fever. So if you want to, put in the comments, which title do you like most? What they went with, Mosquito, Skeeters, Night Swarm, or Blood Fever? I kind of like Night Swarm the most, to be honest, but let me know in the comments. Also, this is a great time to just say, please subscribe to my channel. Just take a break for that. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It literally keeps me motivated to keep doing these reviews. It is quick, painless, it costs you no money, and I highly appreciate it. So anyway, going back to the review. Many larger ideas actually existed in the original script for this film and were plans of Jones's, but the budget ended up getting slashed before they started working on the film. And also, in addition to that, the company who bought the rights to distribute the film and they were going to get a theatrical release for it apparently folded not too long after they bought the rights to it. So, kind of sucks. So, some bad luck with this film. It actually could have been even better than it was. Just think about that. Because they originally had a larger budget for it. Apparently, they wanted to have some larger scale, like mosquito attacks going on, like a whole city, some things like that. So, would have been interesting to see it. But hey, still like the film the way it is. Confusing to start a movie like this about mosquitoes with a spacecraft. I was very confused at first. I'm like, wait a minute. Am I watching the correct film? Is this Mosquito? Because it's got a spacecraft in space. But then, things unfold and you realize, oh, okay, this is how we get these mutant mosquitoes. We get them from a dead alien who crash lands on Earth, and then the mosquitoes feed on the alien blood, and it's the alien blood that not only makes them gigantic, but also makes them radioactive, and then when they suck the blood out of people, leaving them as like husks, in essence, just like skin and bones, basically, they become radioactive at that point, which is a whole nother level of danger that gets introduced into this film, which I appreciated. I thought it was an interesting concept. They immediately established that Meg is one of the science-minded characters that will most likely help solve the issue. Because immediately when she and Ray are in the car and they hit that first mosquito and then they're looking at it, she's the one who's like, I want to take this with us. I want to identify it, all that jazz. So you just know that she's going to be a central character in the film. And she's the science-y person, which comes up in a lot of these, especially like mutant animal films. There's always like a science-y person or someone who's like really knows nature well. And she's that person. So it becomes fitting that she then becomes a park ranger with her scienciness. Oh, also, backtracking just a little bit, I really liked what looked like a stop motion portion of the film showing that first mosquito feeding on the arm of that alien that had died in the crash. I thought that was really cool looking. I'm a fan of like stop motion, so love seeing that in there. Morrow and Hendrix obviously have delusions about their jobs being more important than they are, as they are seen to be acting kind of stupid in the very first scene they're in. Morrow was the park ranger chief, who you don't even see him die. Like, he just kind of disappears. And then obviously Hendrix is found later kind of hiding over that overturned boat, hiding under that overturned boat. But they just like act really over the top and kind of idiotic in the beginning. So you get the idea that they're kind of hapless. Although Hendrix does redeem himself, he becomes way more useful as the film goes on and becomes, you know, a hero character. So that's cool. Note that when Hendrix is using his, what I'm going to deem mosquito smoker initially, when he's going out, and it's that funny moment where he's like smoking all the campers with this thing. Notice when that's happening, they're playing really kind of like goofy music. And it's music where like they like drop these odd notes in the song where it doesn't really feel like it fits. That's a typical thing that's been done in film to like indicate that either in certain instances something's off, or in this instance with how kind of goofy it sounds, that this person's not supposed to be taken seriously, that they're kind of a buffoon of sorts. But like I said, Hendrix then, you know, ends up getting redeemed eventually, which is nice. By the way, on the topic of the music, I thought at least early on in the film, it sounded very Richard Band. Did anyone else feel me on that? It sounded a lot like a Richard Band type score. Richard Band had nothing to do with this film, though. But watching this, it just immediately made me start thinking about Full Moon films and Richard Band scores. So maybe I'm alone in that. I don't know. You can let me know in the comments. The mosquito in the outhouse, which is kind of like the first appearance of someone being, you know, really chased by a mosquito like that. Fun. I thought it was kind of funny. I like the whole outhouse aspect of it. I thought it was also even funnier that when Junior is trying to save his cousin Rex from this mosquito, he actually accidentally just shoots and kills him. And then later on in the film says that a mosquito got him. Technically it didn't. Technically you shot and killed your cousin. So, just saying. Earl taking one Earl taking one of the mosquitoes out shows that he'll be needed for the fight much later in the film. It's something they did in a lot of these films. Like, they show a character's usefulness early on, just like Meg with her sciencey aspect. They show her usefulness that way. Then they show Earl's usefulness in actually executing one of these mosquitoes early on that lets you know he's going to be a part of the surviving group at the end. Like, you can easily see it coming. There's kind of a formula to this stuff, so you just know that's going to be a thing. The mosquito proboscis in the eye scene, awesome. Love that scene. Anything having to do with actually seeing the mosquito suck the life out of people, great. Love it. Those are my favorite parts. The green slime, like when the proboscis is unsheathed, awesome. Love that touch to it. The actual eye puncture in this situation, love it. And they show the blood being sucked through the proboscis. Love that. It's very, very, very cool. I like that they took that initiative to be that in depth with these scenes. I'm a fan. Question: who doesn't finish their hot dogs before starting to have sex? The couple that gets killed by the mosquitoes in the tent, they were rolling around getting it on, and it showed that like they both had like half-eaten hot dogs. And I'm like, who doesn't finish their hot dogs before having sex? You can answer me in the comments. I don't know. It's very confusing to me. Probably the most confusing thing about this film, in my opinion. And on that note, the proboscis butt stab in that scene is pretty funny. I did enjoy that. And Meg joins the park rangers to become the only voice of reason because obviously they needed someone smarter, someone to be taken more seriously as part of the park ranger organization, I guess. And yeah, she's the only one because as we saw it with the setup, Morrow and Hendrix kind of buffoons. But like I said, Hendrix gets redeemed. I do like how Meg wants to take the dead body of the fisherman they find in the boat because she wants to take it with them in the car, in Parks' car. First of all, it's weird that like they become immediate friends with Parks the way they do. It seems like they kind of skip some stuff there, but whatever, we're going with it. But then she's just like, let's take this dead body with us. Doesn't she know you're not supposed to mess with crime scenes? It's early enough in the film that they don't know this is like a widespread thing. So she should be assuming, let's call the police. Let's leave this alone. So the fact that she's like, let's take this dead body. Weird. Ray is probably the most sane person in this film from time to time because he actually wants to leave the danger. Meg and Parks actually want to stick around and play detective early on. Like, literally, they're like, no, we should hang out and figure out what's happening. Ray's like, dude, this is dangerous, obviously, let's get out. He's the smartest one. But you don't get a movie without Meg and Parks being the ones who drive these decisions. So, thank goodness for them. I suppose Hendrix ended up actually surviving because he was the only person who had that smoker, the mosquito smoker, and as soon as he's found, he starts like clicking it, trying to use it, because he thinks maybe it's mosquitoes trying to get him. And it's out of juice, so, or out of smog, however you want to put that. Park says that the next time they find a dead mosquito, he wants to hold on to it and run some tests. What tests is he going to do on it? Because he's a meteor guy. I mean, I guess the only test is the one he actually does later on the dead body, where it's, he's like, oh, yep, it's radioactive. But other than that, he's like, some tests. Like, what other tests is he planning on doing? Are we just assuming that since he's a science-minded individual in some capacity, he knows all sciences? Because films like this definitely have done that. But I just found that kind of interesting. The sound effects during the actual physical fight between the Meg, Ray, Parks, and the bank robbers, Junior and Earl, hilarious, the sound effects during that. They're very, like, over the top, like when someone gets punched or kicked or something. They're very zany sound effects. Very 90s. The assault on the RV is a really fun portion of the film. Now, the assault I'm talking about when the mosquitoes are assaulting the RV that they find. Which, by the way, I was reading online that reportedly this RV actually belonged to the director's mother. And if that's true, when I was watching the film, I was like, oh my gosh, because they flipped that thing. And then also had it like scraping on its side on the asphalt. I was like, I hope that wasn't the case, but who knows. I like how Earl says, where's the cash? And then pretty quickly says, forget the cash, let's get out of here, to Junior. I was just like, that was a really quick turnaround, but hey, it's a so bad it's good film. This is what we, this is what we expect. The sequence of Junior getting sucked dry is awesome. I love that scene. Potentially my favorite scene. The eye puncture one was great, but this one's like that next level. Like seeing all the life being sucked out of his body, his eyes pop out of the sockets, and then eventually they burst all over the place. Like, beautiful. Just a beautiful moment in this film. I love it. It's so good. Of course, the mutant mosquito motive is purely to kill. That's what makes them so much more dangerous. That's what makes people more scared of them. Yeah, that is a funny moment where they're just like, well, usually mosquitoes just feed it so that they can lay eggs, but these seem to just be motivated to kill. But then we find out later that actually, oh, there are eggs, and there are a insane amount of eggs just waiting to be found. And I'll get to what I think should have happened with those eggs in a little bit, but I don't think those were handled properly. It's a whole other issue with the dead bodies becoming radioactive. I'm not really sure how you deal with that in this situation. And the fact that they end up staying relatively close to a dead body and not, as soon as they find out it's radioactive, being like, whoa, everyone step back, is just kind of funny to me. They're like, oh, it's radioactive. Okay, let's hang out next to this radioactive body. It's cool, man. I was like, yep. Excellent moment when Earl finds the chainsaw. I teased this before. When he finds that chainsaw and he says that he hasn't handled one in 20 years, obviously a reference to him being Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That is a joyous moment for us horror nerds, for people who are very familiar with that film and know who Gunnar Hansen is. Super cool moment, love it, and it's just awesome to see him then wielding that chainsaw. That's a big chainsaw, too. They got a good one for it. Things do really seem to slow down, unfortunately, once they end up getting to the house that they barricade themselves into. Didn't really like that portion. For the most part, it had really good pacing, which is kind of surprising for a film like this, until they get to this house they're barricading themselves in. Then, in my opinion, it really started slowing down, unfortunately. And speaking of slowing down, pause for horror hydration. Sorry about that. Yeah, but that was probably the stint of the film I enjoyed the least, when they're just kind of like getting things barricaded, just talking about random stuff. It's like, okay. I like how the mosquito that gets lit on fire literally broke through the window, then just stops moving like it's just sitting on the stove waiting to be killed. That's one of those moments where you're just like, if it was a like good film, you'd be like, okay, this is a problem. But since it's a so bad it's good film, you're just like, yeah, I mean, this is what happens, you know? It happens. Definitely an effective uh-oh moment when Hendrix and Parks find the insane amount of eggs just sitting in the basement of the house they're barricaded into. And at this point, I'll just tell you what they should have done. Well, what they did is they just go upstairs and they come up with this crazy scheme on how they're going to blow the whole house up and then get out. What they should have done probably is take that chainsaw that Earl found and just chainsaw en masse all of these eggs. I know some of them were hatching, but they've been fighting mosquitoes. They were planning on then fighting more mosquitoes. So just fight them then, chainsaw all these things, and take care of it. That's the best way. You don't need to blow up the house in this instance. Well, I mean, you could still do that because there were a lot of mosquitoes outside. You could still do that, but I mean, the egg, I think my idea is a more effective way, but you can let me know your thoughts. Not a great escape plan, especially the part about using a dumbwaiter to get to the attic and then get to the roof. That did not make a whole lot of sense, because are you familiar with how slow dumbwaiters are? And also, are you familiar with how large Earl is and how hard that would be to pull him up in a dumbwaiter? I mean, we just see that under the pressure of Meg and Ray getting up there and then Hendrix being like halfway up, the thing breaks and Hendrix ends up falling to the basement. Like, it wasn't a great plan. I mean, literally, it would have been a much better plan if they decided, okay, let's pull all the ropes for the boardings, the windows boarded up, downstairs, immediately run upstairs, then pull the ones upstairs and go into the attic, and then go to the roof. I mean, like, that's a better idea than let's use a dumbwaiter. I mean, come on. I mean, how much time did they really think they had? Like, they literally set the bomb for like 3 minutes, or the incendiary device. It's like, I don't know, man. Nice to see Parks make it in the end of this film. Yes, the house blows up. They have saved, I was going to say the planet, but not necessarily. They saved that town, as far as we know, and Parks ends up living, thank goodness. Because at first you think, you see Ray and Meg outside walking, you're like, oh, only they made it. And then they find Parks in, he had barricaded himself or shut himself in the refrigerator very smartly, and he made it. He made it. And Earl didn't make it because he was a bank robber, which actually in the initial script, before they had their budget cut, there was going to be a whole sequence showing the actual bank robbery happening. So Earl doesn't live because he's actually a bad guy. He did the bank robbery thing. And Hendrix doesn't live because he's kind of a buffoon, as was shown in the beginning. But Meg and Ray make it because they were good, smart people the whole time. And Parks, same thing. So yeah. The mosquitoes look pretty good in this film. I was very happy with the mosquitoes, especially for like a so bad it's good film. I was actually impressed with how good the mosquitoes looked. I mean, you could tell in scenes that they like have them on like a stick, the way they're just like moving them from off camera. But I think they did a pretty solid job with it. I liked it. This, once again, I'm going to reiterate, it's a particular type of bad 90s acting in this film. No good performances here, really. All bad acting, even Gunnar Hansen, I'm sorry. But hey, it makes it even more fun. My last statement to make about this film. If you think about it, this film plays out a lot like a zombie film. Just literally think about this film and substitute mosquitoes for zombies. It's a zombie film. It literally is a zombie film. They just did mosquitoes instead of zombies. Like the finding all the dead people, trying to survive, meeting up with another group of people, fighting with them, barricading themselves in a house. It's a zombie movie. They just use mosquitoes instead. Just saying. Anyway, would love to hear other people's thoughts on it. Go ahead and put it in the comments. I'm going to rate this two ways, like I said. So as an overall film, out of 5 stars, half stars in play, 2 stars. No, 1.5 stars. Sorry, 1.5 stars. But as a so bad it's good film, I'm going to give it 4. I'm going to give it 4 stars as a so bad it's good film. Mainly because those mosquitoes look really good. And the whole proboscis thing and the death scenes are excellent. When people are getting drained, it is excellent in this film. So 4 stars as a so bad it's good film. Once again, would love to hear your opinions. Go ahead and put it in the comments. Subscribe to my channel, please. I know I already made that plea with you. Also, hit the notification bell button because then you'll know when I'm putting out new videos, and I'm doing 4 a week at this point, which I think is a good amount. Putting in some good work. Regardless, though, I really thank you for checking out this particular video, and until next time, keep it brutal.